question's already been asked, but he's just recording the video.
That's okay. Ruth, this is the third exhibition of your pictures in the series, the research project No Fucking Agenda.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about how the project developed, will you?
Yeah. So, No Fucking Agenda was conceived thinking about ideas of the male gaze and then the female gaze as being in opposition to that, and then the possibility of there being a non-gendered gaze of a photographer. So I feature in the photographs photographing the models reflected in the mirror, highlighting the fact that I am taking the photos. I really wanted to show respect to the photographers and not present them as objects but as people. So I asked them questions about themselves. I asked them how they felt about their body image and how they felt about their gender, but also how they felt society felt about their body image and how society felt about their gender. And then presented excerpts from their answers underneath their pictures.
Finn, you've modelled for the project. You mentioned earlier something about questions and the ability to ask questions and what tools we can use for questions. Do you think that your experience as a model for No Fucking Agenda has helped with clarify questions, raise questions, or even answers?
Certainly raise questions. I think Ruth, her point of departure was an interesting question in itself. This kind of researcher, can you transform the kind of power dynamic of the photographer and the photography shoot, and the gender role at the same time? Are these power roles things we can subvert in a really experiential, practical sense? And I totally agree with that. I think that's why I'm wearing a tie today, for example. It's not because I think it makes me look more masculine, but it's because it's a symbol of masculinity. And most expressions of masculinity feel very threatened by any association with femininity. And that's confusing, or maybe uncomfortable, or at least noteworthy. I think there's a lot more to this project that I could still be exploring. Particularly seeing yourself again represented back as yourself as a fixed image when we're really trying to emerge here, at least from my point of view, is an idea of multiplicity, of multiples, of many intersecting nodes. Can we come up with a new framework that includes a more multiple understanding of subtleties of roles, gender, sexuality, which is basically the story of humanity.
Talking about that, actually, Finn, you remind me of Brecon who had this concept of the matrixial gaze. So not just looking from one fixed perspective, but having like a matrix-like network of gazes and perspectives from which to come from. Yeah, who I was researching in terms of gaze, in terms of this project.
Which you introduced the mirror, which was very much, and the experience at the time of having the mirror there. It wasn't just a mirror with which to see you, but it was always a mirror. The photograph is a mirror for me to see myself, but the mirror in the place was also a way for me to see beyond both of us and into the rest of the world around us.
Yeah.
Jane, you've modelled for the project as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about your experience as a model? Would it have been what you would have considered to be a normal model experience, or is there something different going on here?
I mean, it was a comfortable experience. I do some life modelling anyway, so I'm sort of comfortable with, and I've got to an age where I'm comfortable with my body. So it was a comfortable experience. It wasn't at all challenging, or Ruth's a very, she's very good at making you just feel relaxed. and we just chatted, and it was just a comfortable atmosphere to do it in. We were very much thinking about how I would like to represent myself, how I would like, how the rest of the world sees me, but through my perspective. So I might have a different idea of the way that I would like the world to see me in relation to how the world does see me. Always try to challenge stereotypes, but then in a way I've ended up becoming one, which is quite frustrating sometimes, but then, like I say, I've got to an age now where I don't really give a shit. So, I mean, I just think it's a really fascinating project because everything is just becoming more and more fluid and more diverse, and there's so much more to gender politics these days than there was when I was growing up. And I find it a completely fascinating subject because when I was growing up it was very black and white, but then at the same time children growing up were just children, where these days the stereotypes seem to be sort of more rigid as you're growing up, but then as you start to understand your own personality and your own way of being, we're kicking back against those stereotypes, and so there's becoming more and more exploration of different ways of looking at things. And I think this one of the brilliant things about this project is that it's exploring all those different fracturing ideas of what gender is and what it can be. And hopefully we'll get to a point in the future where there's just human beings and we don't particularly have any kind of restrictions on what gender should be, just people.
That's a take.